Hello fairy friends, welcome to part 3 of painting on vintage vinyl. As I had said before in the two previous very long videos, you can use these techniques on any sorts of dolls. Please refer to the links in the description for the other previous videos for all the prep before we started all this. Okay. These eyes, as I mentioned before, are recessed. So I have like some boundaries to follow. So if you're watching this and thinking, wow, I'm making this look really easy. Well, this particular doll is a little bit easier than say a doll with a flat area for the eyes. But what I'm doing here, I'm using white acrylic paint. And I'm using very thin washes. By wash, I mean I'm mixing the tiniest amount of white paint and only white paint on the tip of the brush. And you can clean up very gently with the toothpick, depending on what you're working on. You don't want to gouge your surface. But you can clean up with Q-tips or cotton swabs, whatever you call them. Now, because I did a more realistic face paint on my Gerber baby than what it originally had, I feel like the eyes look too flat, so I'm adding a very pale gray, and I'm going to shade on either corner of the eye. And how I made this very pale gray is I used just simply black acrylic paint and white acrylic paint. And I'm still mixing it with a tiny amount of water. You want it to be very light but not dripping with water. So I'm speeding up here. I think you kind of get the idea. And just remember, if you possibly go too dark, you can go over it again with a thin white wash again in the centers or wherever you feel like you've made a mistake. That's the good thing about doing the thin coats, is you haven't built up a thickness that's not very workable. You haven't built up a thickness that you're just going to have to take off and start over. And since I've done shading at the top of the eyes, I really don't want to ruin that work. I don't want to ruin the work that's already there. So the thin layers is what's going to help you. So this is just me showing you. I found another smaller brush. It's still not as small as I should have had, but I have a daughter who's in art college, and she grabs things of mine and they never find their way back. So this is what I had to make it do with. So I'm blaming her on this. For my reference picture of this 1972 Gerber baby, the upper lash line was rather thick. Now, again, I'm going to keep reminding you, this is just an example of how I'm doing it. Your technique may have to vary according to the type of doll that you're doing. This is just to get you started. And it's really my technique. As I have mentioned before, I don't even believe my technique is the best. It's what has worked for me so far. Now I've gotten both of those upper lash line completed. Thankfully, I don't have a lower lash line that I need to do. I'm cleaning up a little bit again. I just wanted to show you that so that you can understand that I'm not just doing this perfectly. Now, again, here's our bravery test, as Bob Ross, my favorite artist, almost favorite artist, we are putting in that iris. And to remind you again, If you did not watch my previous 2 videos, I'm using Apple Barrel acrylic paints, and this is Cobalt Hue, H-U-E. And I'm just very, very carefully filling in that. And you'll want to look at your reference picture. In my reference picture, the iris goes almost completely to the bottom of the eye and all the way up to the top into that lash line. Now, if you're doing a side glancing or flirty eye, obviously your iris, the colored part of your eye, would be off to the side. Now, if you're not comfortable with going ahead and painting on that iris, you can do a little pencil sketch, a very light, sharp pencil. Now, I'm going to show you how I get some depth with my eyes. I get a Q-tip, I tighten down the wadding. One way makes it fluffy, one makes it tight. I make it tight, twisting it in my fingers, and then I pounce straight up and down on the eye and lift that paint up. Don't worry, I'll show it to you again. I'm filling in the iris over here on the other eye, and you'll notice I flip the doll a lot. That helps me to make sure that I'm getting an exact circle. Well, it's not an exact circle, but as close as I can. And flipping it helps. I don't know why, it just does. If it doesn't help you, then don't do it. A lot of times we see videos and someone's doing something a certain way and it's actually quirky and we think we need to do it and we don't. Now here we go again. I'm pouncing down and lifting up. Now if you've lifted up too much color, go back to that other side of the Q-tip and push back down and you can put the color back down. And then you just want to check for symmetry. This is a good technique if you make a small pupil because all of that effect is showing. However, I just wanted to show you that technique. I'm actually going to cover up all that nice depth that I made by lifting off that paint. The reason that I need to do this is because for my reference picture, the pupils are pretty large. Now, I could have made them smaller if I wanted to. One thing that they tell artists is that pupils are bigger when someone is comfortable and maybe even bigger when they're looking at someone that they love. And when we are scared, when it's dark, well, actually, I think when it's dark, our pupils get bigger. Disregard that piece of information. But we're told that tiny pupils they make whatever you're doing, your subject, look scared. Whereas the bigger pupils look more approachable and they're more endearing, especially in baby dolls. So I hope that makes sense. I chose to make my pupils bigger is what I'm saying. You do not have to make them this big, and I basically covered over my neat work that I did with the lift. Now I'm taking just the white and dipping it in the Q-tip. I mean, not the Q-tip. I'm so tired. The toothpick, and just dotting it down. Now you do not have to do these little reflections, the little light reflecting in the eye. You don't have to do 2 in each eye. You actually, if you're looking at a reference photo, do what's in the photo or do what you want. I'm doing what I want. Now, this is where I goofed up big time. I thought I pressed record, but I didn't. And I went ahead and put in the eyelashes using this pin here, and the pin is a micron, and I believe it's 0.5. It's in the photo. I show you the tip so you can see. Right now I'm just mimicking what I did because I I didn't, like I said, I thought I pressed record the whole time. I thought I was recording. That's my little cheat with the Micron. Now, one thing with that marker, you cannot use a brush-on sealant. It will come up. I used a spray sealant, and that kept the eyelashes that I drew in place and kept them from bleeding, the ink from bleeding. Now I've got the Americana Duraclear High Gloss. Sorry, I had to get a drink. I have tried to record this over and over until my mouth and my throat is dry. If you watch my previous videos, I go over the all of the products used in this. What I'm doing is loading that up. You know, whereas I told you before to use the thin washes of paint, you want a little droplet at the end of the gloss on this. Again, you do not have to use a high gloss. You can use a matte gloss. You can choose not to use any gloss at all on that eye. You can go straight and use the spray. The acrylic matte spray, which I actually used both for this because I wanted to set the hair. And I'm just dropping the clear gloss in the center of the eye and working it out. Be mindful to not get it too close to that Micron pen if you choose to use that on the lashes, because it will take it up. Now I am cleaning up a little bit. And now I am putting on a little bit of the King's Gold in the Apple Barrel paint and the Delta, the Raw Sienna. Now, Tammy, your too bright yellow doll hair, don't take that off. Tint it with a darker shade. Don't ruin all of your good work. You can do a thin wash over that. And I'm just going through, and this is real nice because the hair's molded and it's raised, so I can just lightly brush that over and clean up with a cotton swab. And I didn't show you the eyebrows. I painted the eyebrows with a thin brush, and I used the Raw Sienna. And here she is, how she came to me with her old face paint all grubby. And here's her all finished with her cute little romper I sewed for her. And I think she turned out pretty good. She's not perfect by any means, but I love her. I think she's got character. Thanks for watching.